ma se resume en Acuario.
Happy holidays! I've got a gift for you. Buy 4 tarot readings or coaching session gift codes in any combination, and you'll receive 2 additional gift codes too. So use all 6 codes for yourself or share them with friends and family as holiday gifts, stocking stuffers, or maybe even birthday presents. These don't expire, so you can feel free to use them and share them throughout the year. Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for being my friends. Hi there, Pisces. This is your weekly reading for the week of December 28th through January 3rd. I apologize that these are a bit late. I decided to spend Saturday night in the emergency room exhausted, and I didn't really know that that was possible to get that exhausted, but it happened to me, and it just feels identical to, have you experienced like jet lag when you go from California to Florida? And or you go to London from California, and it's difficult to get back into a normal kind of feel. You know, it's kind of hard to adjust to the time change. That's what it feels like, that kind of jet lag, but like times 10. So I'm fine, and I apologize that these are a little bit late, but I believe that the universe has its own sense of divine timing and order. And for whatever reason you're hearing it at this time, it was perfect for you and me. So the first card we start off with on Monday is a judgment card. And this indicates that we are ending the year, starting the new year with a real sense of knowing that we will be rewarded for all of the effort, all of the persistence, for always doing the right thing, for doing the best, for being honest and truthful. The rewards are coming. And this is something I'm especially happy about because, as I've told you, I am a Virgo rising. So it's even much more important for me to hope for the good stars for us. So this also talks about a feeling that things are going the way they should, and you almost have to put no effort into it because it's almost like Saturn coming back around to leave the presence and to surprise you with good things. That it's hard work you've put into it and you're well deserved of whatever you receive, but that you know that you really worked hard. So whatever it is must have some significance. And especially with the fact that you've got some major arcana cards here. I think there's 4 of them, that we have a very real and tangible sense that these are circumstances that are divine order or ordered by the divine. These are things that are somewhat karmic, and even as indicated by the judgment card. Tuesday, we have the justice card, and this is a really good indication for those of you who are waiting for a legal determination or a decision that may come from the court system, a judge, in the real sense. So this is also, of course, the kind of justice and balanced fairness that comes when we have been, like I said, living right, doing the right thing, being honest, treating others with kindness, with respect, doing the best you can every day to be the best you can be. You know, it's not always easy to do the right thing every day, but once we understand what's at stake, and, you know, once we get past about, 25, 30 years old, we finally figure out, especially the closer to 30 and thereafter, that's when everybody really gets the idea that you reap what you sow, that you get what you've given. And this is a good indication because we have both the justice card and the judgment card upright. So there's some information coming to you that maybe you'd even lost hope for, or maybe you were just really doubting that you would get a good outcome in it. I'll be talking about romance and how this will apply in a separate reading, but just in general, this is a very good sign. This is also the day that Sun in Capricorn, your solar fifth house of your creative projects, your business, if you are self-employed, your children or the children around you. Sometimes we see the siblings interacting with us in this house. This is also the house that relates to the energy that we put into being more leisure, taking time out for ourselves, taking care of ourselves in the same way we take care of others. You know, Virgo, you're always doing for other people. And in the end, if you constantly do for other people without getting the same in return, it could lead to a kind of resentment. So you do have to take care of yourself so that you're not so dependent on anyone else or any other structure or situation to provide that value to you. It's very rare that you see a Virgo who will treat others, almost random strangers. It's very similar to what you see a Cancer do, right? Who will treat others with this loving kindness, patience, going the extra mile, doing too much, and yet at the same time they turn around and in their own home or their own family, fifth house, or their own romantic love affairs, as this card, as this house indicates, that they are not fair, that they are not giving, that they're kind of nasty. Now, I've seen that on just a few occasions. I don't believe that's you, but I have experienced this actually 3 times. I've seen this 3 times that I can remember clearly, and each time I knew that in one there was a level of mental illness, there was a level of rage that had built up in another due to not being fair and balanced with people throughout his life. And the other, had some issues that really came from a conditioned response. Okay, so this was, in essence, taught and repeated. So this won't apply to most of you. But I do have to say that there's a small percentage of you that will see, as reflected in the eyes of another, that sense of balance and fairness and kindness and karma demonstrated to us. Imagine that this is kind of the energy that for the small, I want to call this 5%. 5% of Virgo sun, 5% of Virgo rising, okay? That we will see that others will demonstrate to us their decision to walk away or no longer tolerate. And it isn't that I see it so much here, although the death card is giving me that idea. I have to add that in a small dose for those Virgos who would hear this, that if you don't like here at the end of the year, the first week of the new year, what you see reflected in others, don't point your finger at them and say, because you did this and look what you've done, or you tell somebody else, he or she left me, I got dumped again because, I keep picking the derelicts. Well, really, you need to not say it, and you need to turn that reflection onto yourself to see what it is that you do that makes other people go away, right? We see this when people come to therapists and people like me, and will explain things like, well, my girlfriend cheated on me and I'm so unhappy. And I have to say, well, so when was the last time you cheated on someone else? I always get lied to by a specific group of people for that question. Now, before I do my work with people, when I do work with them, as more the role of, I want to even come up with a word. I may Don King this one, but when I am the behavioral detective, I can tell when they're lying to me, and then I have to gain their trust, of course, and work them down. And once in a while, they don't want to hear it, to get them to say, yeah, well, okay, so I cheated on like 14 out of my last 16 girlfriends. Well, what do you expect? This is something that even if they never knew and you never told them, that would happen. So for the small, very small sliver percentage of those of you who are like, yeah, that's not so great because I just got cheated on, and I don't care that I was the one who cheated with other people. That person didn't even know. Remember that this is here for you to see and view, and to make a final commitment to get that energy out of your life. I really don't see it being the other way around, where it's just somebody randomly cheats on you. But I usually get enough data from people replying and giving me their feedback to let me know what did or didn't happen. So don't think that just because you're a Virgo sun or ascendant, that, or even moon, that somebody's going to cheat on you. This is, again, that very, very small section, group of people where this would be the case. And please understand that I try to get the messages out to everybody, so when something comes to mind, I use it. So the sun in Capricorn here, of course, again, that solar 5th house, sextiling Neptune in Pisces, your solar 7th house of the relationships, is that opportunity to face up and even deal with difficulties or disagreements, incompatibilities in that relationship, which usually are rooted in something that has not been expressed. And the opportunity exists because it's necessary. This is something that we need. For those of you that are not in committed partnerships, relationships, marriages, or even business relationships that would apply to the 7th house, it would be to those dating relationships, or it is the reality check opportunity that you can speak to your children and even say words like, look, I have made this mistake over and over. I know where it leads. I know the path. This is the same one I've traveled. You might be able to give that information to one of your children, and don't beat yourself up long. You know, if you're like, this is all my fault because I took my anger out on my children, or because I overprotected them because I just wanted to win. I didn't want the ex-husband, the ex-wife to get to the children. Whatever that thing is that's happening in the 5th house, opportunity to correct it. Just acknowledge it, face it, deal with it, greet it, embrace it, and say, this is some bullshit I don't want in my life. I'm going to apologize to my children and say, I was wrong here, I was wrong there, I was wrong there. I don't want you to repeat it. Please hear me out. And that's, of course, if you have the ability to insert your wisdom into dialogue. It doesn't always work, because by the time the kids get older, and I've warned people who are raising children in the midst of a divorce and custody battles, and you see the worst things happening, right? You can get one parent trying to keep them away from the other, and I've always warned them, one day it will hit you in the face. That's if it doesn't kick you in the ass on the way out the door. And so even if you're at that point, you're like, Rita, I don't know what to do. This is the moment that you can just face up to it and own it and say, I didn't make the best decisions here. And if your children are like, I don't want to hear it from you because you kept me from my mom or my dad or whatever that is, or from my family of origin because of your problem with your mom or your dad. Okay, that's when you can say, please forgive me and let me help you understand why I made those mistakes, what I believe I should have done, and how I want to be here to help you. That way your kids know, if this is your children, could even be grandchildren at this point, that you are doing the best to help them and that you're not afraid to turn the all-seeing eye onto yourself. That's when we have the greatest strength, is when we're able to dissect ourselves for sake of introspection. And we don't do that for too long, especially if you get stuck in a hole somewhere, like when I'm like, ugh, the kind of men I used to pick, or, that kind of thing. So understand that healing is a real potential. All you have to do is take the action that corresponds. And if it comes from a place of balance, fairness, an understanding of karma and dharma, that there's no way to get this wrong. So now Mercury also in that same place, Capricorn, your solar fifth house at that moment in time, squaring Mars in Libra, your solar second half of income and resources and property. Also the house that pertains to the way you allocate your funds and budget, what you have and how you spend it. This could be where you're having difficulty reconciling what is giving to give freely from a place of love and what is giving from a place of controlling, where we say, hey, don't forget, I'm the one that, replaced your tires or, took care of you and replaced that, $4,000 mirror when it crashed to the ground. And, this is where we want to make sure that we are not creating a tense atmosphere or doing things from a place of controlling, to manipulate. Also, be sure that you are not enabling anyone. If one of your kids is just sucking you dry, or like, shoot, it could be your girlfriend, boyfriend, if one of these situations is happening and they're not in college, but you're paying all of their debts and you'd rather be funding their college degrees, then you might have to have a conversation with them. I would pick a time, of course, that's appropriate, not when we get hot under the collar and criticize because somebody dropped out of college in their third damn year and you're like, what are you doing? That's probably not where we're going to get the point across, because we'd have to be in touch with our children to know what's going on with them, to know when we can insert the wisdom, between the dialogue. It has to have a natural and organic place, or it'll never go much further than out the other ear. So with that said, make sure that you understand that there could be a tension here that could persist into the early part of the year. But of course, all of that will be waning and on its way out as we are watching the heavenly bodies shift into their positions for 0000 January 1st. Also, this is a good time for you to consider if you are getting what you believe you deserve in your place of employment or in the business. If you have a business and it's really not supporting you and it's now taking too much to keep it going, could be time to consider what to do with it and if you would be better off retiring, or perhaps you might want to go into a different line of work. I wouldn't just make any sudden moves, of course, until we're out of this first pre-retrograde shadow. But considering that all of these retrogrades, I believe there are 4 of them, that will end up in earth signs, and with the planetary effect of so many objects in earth, want to make sure that you're being practical and grounded. I have no doubt that that's what you'll do. But as I'm going to discuss with you later, there are lots of you, if not a preponderance, who are going to be hypercritical of anything. And that's when we could really kill the creative benefit, is by overanalyzing it to death. Wednesday, we've got the 10 of Wands, and this is excellent because this indicates that you're feeling that, again, the benefits, like the Judgment card, the rewards, the benefit, the real manifestation of gifts from the universe and gifts on the material and physical and emotional plane are coming to you soon. You're almost home. This is when Scorpio, Venus and Scorpio, will move into Sagittarius, or solar 4th house of the home, the family, your foundation, the structure, the property issues, the subconscious, the home life, the home base, your memories, anything associated with land and property, and of course physically where you live. There are some areas of the past that are associated with the same, as well as your ancestors. And this is where you could really feel that there is some work that will be perfecting. So as it shifts into Sagittarius, we have to also remember that there is a semi-square to Pluto in Capricorn again. That's solar 5th house. And for the purpose of this discussion, the semi-square indicates that there is something going on right there between your house of home and family and the people in it, and or the people who were, and anything associated with the way that the house and the family is functioning or not. And so the semi-square is kind of difficult aspect to define, because what it's telling us is that there's something that needs to be adjusted, but it's going to be something of an exploration to find. Now, for those of you that have been working on this energy for a while, you might finally realize that there's too many people living in your house. Or you might realize that something about the structure and integrity of it needs to be repaired because there's an inherent instability. Maybe you're well aware that you've got a mildew issue that needs to be brought under control. This kind of energy is one of those things that needs to be located. And then once you think you've located it, you have to almost extrapolate from it. Just get any bit of information out of it that you can, because it might be on the surface one thing. And then if you and I sat down and began to peel back the layers, we would find that really comes down to something that perhaps you are up to here with having all these people in your house. Maybe it's all of your children were out or should have been out on their own, still in college or dorming or doing whatever, and they're now all back in there and none of them are in college. That there's just some level of an imbalance here, and maybe it really goes back deeper into something ancestral that if you could locate, you'd understand was a pattern of conditioning that you either repeated and or again enabled somebody else who then falls into that same position that you were in at some point, and now you're like, I got to do something about this. There's like too many damn people in this house. Always reminds me of kind of like how it is when immigrants are getting ready to boost up and to uplift the next immigrant family coming into their home. The Vietnamese do this like pros. That's really where I've seen it. The Mexicans like to all move into the same house sometimes, and then they love each other so much that they don't come apart. The Vietnamese practically kick each other out as soon as they're speaking Spanish and have a business, or excuse me, speaking English and probably Spanish too, and have their own business. They're back out, and then they keep repeating this pattern. So it could be that there's an enabling here, and what I mean to say about this is that too many people that are falling into that comfortable zone where, they're like, hey, I love living with all of my family. And we're like, yeah, no, but we can't even do that. It's just too many people in one house could be aggravating you. As loving as they could be, you might have to just deal with that issue that it is kind of driving you up the wall. And you're like, you know what, I worked so hard to get my 10 of Wands to make my home what it is. And then now I walk in and the house is wall to wall with people. And what if you've got this really tiny little house, and some of you already relocated, but this could indicate that others might need to relocate if you've got family members that have health issues or challenges and they need to be helped. It's not like kids that are supposed to be in college and we're about to slingshot them back out, where they're supposed to be. But this is really where you might have to actually consider a move. And that if that isn't in your budget, that might have to be something that you work on, because there's a real potential that that's exactly what has to happen. Thursday, we have the 7 of Cups that indicates that there are so many options. So many options, so many ways of doing this, but I'm going to warn you here that the 7 of Cups in this arrangement, in light of this astrology, is indicating that you need to really narrow down your focus when you're trying to prioritize what it is that just needs to be worked with first during this first Mercury retrograde of the year that will begin in Aquarius. It will actually stop in Aquarius, stay there for 8 or 9 days, and it will go backwards. And so right back into your 5th house of Capricorn. So it will actually take a step forward into Aquarius. And again, your 6th house, you may have a brilliant idea like, well, why don't we just go buy a set of flats? Or why don't we just buy a set of duplexes? And you're thinking maybe with, 500,000, you could really put together a compound, in some modest way. And whatever it is, as soon as you get the idea, reality kicks in and yanks you back into the 5th house, where that's just not only not feasible, it's just not doable. And it's probably because it's just not well thought out. But let me guarantee you that it's Mercury saying, ground yourself back in reality. Oh my goodness. Pardon me just a moment. Okay, sorry about that. So right here with this aspect of the sesquiquadrate, Venus in Sagittarius, the solar 4th house of that home and property, and Uranus in Aries, your solar 8th house of death, taxes, divorce, the assets that we conjoin in marriage or in any other extremely committed relationship or partnership, the fruits of what we create together. And you could have with this sesquiquadrate, this is where you could be really thinking, dang, this isn't working. And maybe you're the one working your butt off and everybody else is kind of leeching onto you. And I don't know who all these people are, but it gives me the feeling that there's a bunch of people in your house. And it could be metaphorically. It doesn't have to be, real human bodies, but maybe you're feeling that the house is too small and that you need to expand because maybe it's really not the greatest arrangement for a pet of yours, or you don't like the area, or somehow you're just feeling like, I need to transform this situation into something else. And so my suggestion would be, of course, you know what I'm going to say, that I would just start doing the math, do the homework. I wouldn't even start looking for properties until the end of January, if that's what you're going to do, if you are one of the few that have not moved. I've had to move multiple times here recently, and then I have something else in mind, that there's a property that I'm looking at, and I don't want to be too far away from my son and the property he bought, but I'm not really here enough to make it worth it yet. At the same time, I'm thinking kind of long term, so I wouldn't do anything at this time either. I would just start thinking about what it is that I can do, what is actionable at this time, because the sesquiquadrate is going to say there needs to be an action taken to resolve this conflict, whether it is a real conflict and there are conflicting opinions about how this should be, or maybe they're conflicting words. Could get pretty ugly pretty fast. This is where I would just say, hey, look, I'm going to resolve to take an action that is not an action at this time, because we know inaction is a chosen conscious action. And then I would make a decision to start to do the math on it and figure out what I'm going to do next. And remember, you're not in a hurry, and there's nothing about this year that is going to require or necessitate quick thinking. Very few people are actually going to be feeling that. I think the only few of you that are going to feel this need to do something relatively soon are those of you that are in relationships that are not working. And let me tell you, when the universe doesn't want you to be in a relationship with somebody, it will remove that person from you. I've even seen it where these people are like serial cheaters. I know one woman who just cheats and cheats and cheats. And I'm like, why are you with this person if you just don't want to be with them? And then she explained, well, because we're all living in his house. And I was like, oh, God. And then I know these people. That's what makes it worse. And I have to pretend that I don't know certain things in confidence, because I'm like, well, when you discover that somebody that a bunch of your friends know, and then this person is somebody connected to somebody you used to be connected to, you get sick real quick because you want to say things like are part of your experience, and you can't. You have to just somehow, when they're paying you, assimilate the information. So keep in mind that, and of course I'll save that for another discussion, but there are some of you who might just get sick of that cheating that's happening to you. Maybe you learned the lesson that you'll never cheat on anybody again because this one really hurt. And the older we get, the more uncomfortable that could be. And vice versa, somebody could say, I've had enough and we just need to not be together. And you set your store on this, that you put great emphasis into making this all happen. And again, who are all those people under your roof? So my suggestion is that I'll discuss that with you at another time, but decisions like this don't need to be made overnight unless there is really something so flagrant and or nefarious happening that it just has to be handled now. And it could be happening with somebody who is one of your children, one generation down, or even one generation up and next to you. So I really wouldn't worry about it too much. On Friday here, the Wheel of Fortune, excellent. So we know that, sometimes we're on top, sometimes we're on bottom, and what goes around comes around. This is a very karmic card in a positive sense, though. It's just kind of like the considerations of fate and chance. And there are some things that I believe can appear very fated, and then by chance or perchance we find a solution to change it. So the Wheel of Fortune here coincides with, of course, the beginning of the year, Mercury's move into Aquarius. And this is where we will take one step and or 1 degree into Aquarius, and then it's going to hang out there, just kind of suspended in mid-jello, like those horrible, oh gosh, I get sick just thinking about green jello with a can of fruit cocktail in it. And I don't know. I can't remember any bad association other than not liking the way it looked, but I'm traumatized. It's like we have this little joke in our family, and we have all kinds of different family members of different ethnicities and lots of different married people. And so this is what we call white people food. And my ex-husband's sister used to say the funniest thing. I don't know if I ever told you this, but her sister-in-law was very conservative and came from a very white bread kind of military family, beautiful people. And she called that sister-in-law's food fear factor food. And it was just so funny. I don't remember who had the green jello, but I think it was my ex-mother-in-law. And then I was like, I just didn't want any. So when Mercury is suspended in the green jello of Aquarius, like some fruit cocktail, we'll have a moment of insight or 2 or 5. Write down your ideas because you're not going to be able to act on them and it wouldn't be prudent. Let's just say I go buy that house I'm looking at and then my decision is, oh God, no. Well, if I've already started the process, I could lose my deposit and worse, right? So we have to look at these things the way that we are most conservatively served to. We're also in the intensified pre-retrograde shadow. So remember, you might be feeling lucky. This is not the time to act. It is time to plan, disseminate the information, categorize the pros and cons, and etc. ad nauseum. Just go forward from there. Saturday, we have the Death card in reverse, and this is a card that we have to explore. There's no astrological aspect here that just draws my attention to it, other than the Mercury is intensifying. And the Death card in reverse is talking about a situation that needs to end. It won't transcend, transmutate, transform. It can't go through its process of decay unless we allow it, unless we release it. It's kind of like having a dead body in the trunk. I don't know what that's really like, I think. But we need to release the old to make room for the new. So I will give you a hint for those of you that are in the relationships that are not working. That if you honestly sat there and thought to yourself, this person isn't even happy. Why am I holding her hostage? Am I just desperate to keep her, or am I desperate to not be alone? That's where you need to let go and get free. Because the beauty of facing your fears and releasing somebody who isn't happy with you anyway, and this can't possibly be a harmonious relationship. I mean, it reminds me of keeping birds in cages. I always kept birds, but mine always had open doors. And, so I had a conure that, lived all around the house and lots of budgies, and I never really felt, even with my chickens, I didn't want them to be caged. I wanted them to be free. So, like a bird, we don't want to keep this beautiful creature in a cage. If you have a pet bird and its wings are not clipped or anything, obviously, you wouldn't keep a creature that is so intelligent locked up. Neither would you want to keep a person that way. So ask yourself, why are you holding on to a situation that is decaying and it's past its obvious expiry? And then let that fear become the transmutation. It's okay to be alone. It is probably the best way to learn how you are never alone, because you're with yourself all the time. And the one person we can't get away from, right? We can't get away from ourselves. And if somewhere inside of us we're having a bad attitude or we're being negative, what's the first thing we have to do? Smack ourselves around a bit, kind of, metaphorically, to be able to get past this, because we got to get this negativity under control. So here I think that whatever the situation is, whether it is familial, the people in that house, whether it's a relationship that isn't working out, there's going to be, and we'll again discuss that later, for those of you that are on the brink of a divorce or something, where it's like, damn, you either get some counseling here or, you go ahead and fall over that Niagara Falls of the point of no return, but we'll talk about that. It just may be better to shake hands, be friends, and let each other go, let that person go find whoever they think they need. It isn't personal at that point, even if they're saying, look, you don't get it. I don't want to repair this relationship. And that might be one of the hardest things to hear, but very quickly it becomes what? Anger and sadness and joy, and then it becomes something that looks like bipolar disorder. It's better to just allow it to move right along on its own. Don't hold on to it. Remember, whenever the Death card shows up in reverse in terms of a relationship especially, or even a job that it does not serve your highest creativity and makes you feel happy, then think of it like this: body in a trunk. It's going to bloat. It'll stink. Everybody will know. It's quite obvious at that point. The Five of Pentacles on Sunday in reverse is talking about that fear of being alone, and or you may be in that category of people that's like, I want to get all of you out of this house. You don't get it. Take you and your kids and your sister and your brother and Tío Juan and Hermana Rosa. And I'm not picking on one ethnicity. It's just because I've seen it before and it's kind of funny. So yes, and there are Mexican people in my family. My dearly departed uncle was married to my aunt. He was one of the coolest Mexicans I ever met. And I have 3 cousins who are half Mexican. And so they're half Cuban, half Mexican. So I always think that they're going to just kind of implode upon themselves. Mexican people are very different from Cubans, but somehow in that we get along really well. And then it's not like putting a Cuban and a Puerto Rican in a room. You don't want to know what that's like. So Mars enters Scorpio here on Sunday. And Mars entering Scorpio is your solar 3rd house of communications and your native homeland. For those of you that are here on visas, or if you're in another country on a visa, maybe you're working in the Middle East or in the Gulf and you're an American citizen, there could be something relating to travel here and or the adjustments that maybe you're saying to yourself, I got to get out of here. Mars and Scorpio in your 3rd house will make you want to go to frickin' Buckingham Palace or I'm going to say something that you probably know why it's a joke. The basement in the Alamo. If you know that, why that's funny. Okay, so anyway, this is where you're really thinking about. But again, I don't want you to take or make any sudden moves or make any sudden judgment calls because it could just kind of mess up the flow. With Mercury going to be retrograde in that solar 5th house, the best thing to do all around in any of this is to just wait it out and see what it becomes. Mercury will be retrograde until the 25th, and then it will station and start its way back to cross over those degrees. And by mid-February, we know what's going on. You'll know before Valentine's Day whether you want to, buy somebody a box of chocolates or you want to throw them right at their head, right, Virgo? You're going to be just fine. I'll be talking to you soon. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your lovely messages of encouragement and the funny things you send to my post office box. Let me tell you, it's always a surprise, and I appreciate it very much. I love you all. God bless.